They laughed at the human's small size until one of them pressed a Kryn battle captain overhead for 30 full seconds. The laughter died instantly, replaced by the question no one wanted to ask: what are humans made of? Vexed Tharoon stood in the center of the training hall, his scales gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights of the Galactic Defense Coalition facility. He crossed his 4 muscular arms across his chest, watching the entrance with barely concealed anticipation. Today was assessment day, and he lived for this. For 15 cycles, Vex had served as the primary combat instructor at Station Apex, the Coalition's most prestigious military training center. He had seen every species the galaxy had to offer: Vexians with their quad-arm configurations, Vorkul berserkers who could bend steel plating, Methari shock troops with their crystalline exoskeletons, and of course his own people, the Kryn, who dominated every physical category in the known systems. The Kryn were built for war. 2.3 meters of dense muscle-reinforced skeletal structure and reflexes honed through millions of years of evolution on Krenar, a world where only the strongest survived to breed. Vex himself could deadlift 400 kilograms without breaking a sweat. He had personally trained over 3,000 soldiers and not one had ever exceeded Kren standards. Not one. The door hissed open and Vex's second-in-command, a Thexian named Krell, entered with a datapad. His forearms moved in an agitated pattern which usually meant something had annoyed him. "They are here," Krell announced, his mandibles clicking with what sounded like disgust. "Who?" Vex asked, though he already knew. The schedule had been clear. The humans. Ah yes, the humans. Vex had heard about them, of course. Everyone had. The new species that had practically begged for coalition membership. They came from some backwater planet in an unremarkable star system. Desperate to prove they belonged among the galactic powers. Their technology was adequate, sure, barely, but their biology, laughable. Vex had reviewed the preliminary reports. Humans averaged 1.7 meters in height. They had only 2 arms. Their bone density was pathetic compared to Kren standards. No natural armor, no redundant organ systems, no enhanced musculature. They were fragile, soft-skinned creatures who somehow survived on a planet without any real predators. "Send them in," Vex said, a grin spreading across his snout. This would be entertaining. The doors opened again, and the human delegation entered the training hall. Vex had to stop himself from laughing out loud. There were 6 of them, dressed in dark blue uniforms that looked almost comical on their small frames. The tallest among them barely reached Vex's chest. They looked around the facility with wide eyes, taking in the massive equipment, the reinforced floors, the weights that could crush a civilian transport vehicle. Behind Vex, he heard snickering. Several Kryn soldiers had gathered to watch, along with a few Vorkul and Methuri. Word had spread quickly about the human assessment. Nobody wanted to miss this. "Welcome to Station Apex," Vex announced, his voice booming across the hall. "I am Instructor Vex Tharoon. You must be the human contingent." The human at the front of the group stepped forward. He had dark skin, close-cropped hair, and an expression that gave away nothing. His uniform bore the insignia of a coalition lieutenant. "Lieutenant Marcus Webb, sir," the human said, his voice surprisingly steady. "Reporting with Marine Unit 7 for cross-species evaluation." Marine Unit 7. Vex resisted the urge to laugh again. These tiny creatures called themselves Marines. He had seen Jaluvian children with more intimidating physiques. "Marines," Vex repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "Tell me, Lieutenant Webb, do you understand what we do here at Station Apex?" "Physical assessment and combat readiness evaluation, sir," Marcus replied without hesitation. "Correct. We test strength, endurance, and combat capability across all coalition species." Vex walked slowly around the human group, examining them like specimens. "We establish baselines. We identify weaknesses. We separate the warriors from the diplomats." More laughter from the gathered aliens. One of the Vorkul, a massive brute named Garthok, stepped closer to get a better look. "By the void. They are tiny," Garthok rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "Vex, are you sure these are adults? They look like juvenile Kryn." "Worse," added a Kryn soldier named Drex. "At least our juveniles have claws." The humans said nothing. They stood in formation, eyes forward, expressions neutral. Lieutenant Marcus Webb kept his gaze locked on Vex, seemingly unbothered by the mockery. Vex stopped in front of a human female, shorter than the others, with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, her name tape read Ortiz. "You," Vex said, leaning down until his snout was level with her face. "How much do you weigh?" 68 kilograms, sir, she answered calmly. Vex straightened up and turned to address the room. 68 kilograms. I have weapons that weigh more. The hall erupted in laughter. Tell me, Private Ortiz, what exactly does your species eat? Air. Standard rations, sir, Ortiz replied, her expression never changing. Krell approached with his datapad reading from the human files. According to their biological reports, humans have minimal muscle density, weak skeletal structure, and virtually no natural defenses. Their homeworld is classified as low-threat environment with moderate gravity. Moderate gravity, Vex repeated, shaking his head. Of course, they evolved on an easy world, no challenge, no strength. He turned back to Marcus Webb, who still had not moved, had not reacted, had not shown even a flicker of emotion. Something about that stillness bothered Vex, though he could not say why. Lieutenant, I will be honest with you, Vex said, moderating his tone slightly. I have trained thousands of soldiers. Kren, Vorkol, Thexian, Nathari, even Peluvians. But humans, he gestured at the group. I do not see how your species can meet coalition military standards. You are simply too, well, weak. Marcus Webb nodded slowly, as if considering this. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but clear enough for everyone to hear. Permission to proceed with the assessment, sir. Vex blinked. He had expected protest, anger, maybe even some desperate appeal about human potential. Instead, the human wanted to continue. You understand what will happen, yes? Vex asked. You will be tested against species that evolved for combat. You will fail, badly. And it will be witnessed by everyone here. Understood, sir, Marcus said. We still want to try. For a moment Vex almost felt something resembling pity. These humans had no idea what they were walking into. They would humiliate themselves and their species would become a joke across the coalition. But if they wanted to learn the hard way, who was he to stop them? Very well, Vex announced, turning to address the assembled soldiers. Clear the floor. Prepare the standard assessment weights. Let us see what Earth's finest can do. The aliens cheered and jeered, already placing bets on how quickly the humans would give up. Marcus Webb simply nodded and gestured for his unit to follow him to the testing area. Vex watched them go, these tiny, fragile creatures walking calmly toward their own embarrassment. He had no idea that in less than an hour everything he thought he knew about strength would be shattered. The testing platform hummed to life, its reinforced surface designed to handle the kind of weight that would crush standard flooring. Vex stood at the control panel, pulling up the standard coalition assessment protocols on the main display screen. Around the perimeter of the hall, aliens gathered in clusters, some sitting on equipment racks, others leaning against walls, all eager to watch the show. The humans had moved to the side of the room, standing in a loose group near the observation area. They were not talking among themselves, not fidgeting, just watching. Lieutenant Marcus Webb had his arms crossed, his face still showing that same infuriating calm. A few of the humans had pulled out data pads and appeared to be taking notes. Notes. As if they were here to study rather than compete. We will begin with standard demonstrations, Vex announced, his voice carrying across the hall. Each species will perform the coalition baseline lift. This establishes your starting category and determines your training placement. He gestured to Drex, one of his Kryn soldiers. Drex, show them how it is done. Drex stepped onto the platform, rolling his shoulders. He was young for a Kryn, barely into his second decade, but already built like a siege engine. His scales had the deep green coloring of the Northern Territories, and his arms were thick as tree trunks. The weight system descended from the ceiling, a massive bar with plates loaded on each end. The display showed 280 kilograms, the standard Kryn baseline. Drex gripped the bar, planted his feet, and lifted. The weight rose smoothly, steadily, until he held it at chest height. He held the position for the required 5 seconds, then lowered it with controlled precision. The platform registered the lift with a confirming tone. The Kryn soldiers cheered. Garthok slammed his fist against his chest in approval. 280 kilograms, Vex announced. Standard Kryn baseline. Acceptable. He looked at the humans. They were writing on their data pads. One of them, a male with the name Kim on his uniform, seemed to be doing calculations. Vex moved on. Krell, demonstrate the Thexian standard. Krell approached the platform with his characteristic four-armed gait. The weights adjusted automatically, adding plates until the display read 310 kilograms. Krell positioned himself, gripped the bar with his upper and lower arms working in coordination, and lifted. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he strained, but he completed the lift, holding it for the required time. More cheers from the crowd. The Thexians in attendance whistled their approval, a sound like steam escaping from vents. 310 kilograms, Vex announced. Thexian baseline. Well done. Again, he glanced at the humans. More note-taking. Private Ortiz appeared to be sketching something, possibly the lifting positions. What did they think they would learn from watching? Garthok, Vex called, show these newcomers what a Vorkol can do. Garthok lumbered to the platform, each step making the floor vibrate slightly. The Vorkol were the largest species in the coalition, built like walking mountains. Garthok stood nearly 3 meters tall, with arms as thick as a human torso. The weight system strained as it loaded 340 kilograms onto the bar. Garthok did not bother with careful positioning. He simply grabbed the bar, roared and yanked the weight upward. His muscles bulged, his skin flushed darker with effort, and he held the bar overhead with his arms fully extended. 340 kilograms. Vex shouted over the roar of approval from the Vorkol observers. The Vorkol standard. Strength incarnate. Garthok slammed the weight down, making the entire platform shake, then beat his chest and roared again. The other Vorkol joined in, creating a sound like thunder rolling through the hall. When the noise finally died down, Vex turned to face the humans. They had stopped taking notes. They simply stood there, watching him with those unnervingly calm expressions. So, Vex said, walking toward them slowly, you have now seen what real soldiers can do. Kren, Thexian, Vorkol. These are warriors bred and trained for combat. He stopped a few meters away. The coalition baseline for new species is 200 kilograms. Can any of you even attempt that? Silence. The humans looked at each other, seemed to have some kind of wordless conversation, then looked back at Vex. 200 kilograms, Vex repeated. Honestly, I will be impressed if any of you can lift half that amount. Your own reports indicate your species has minimal strength compared to galactic averages. Lieutenant Marcus Webb tilted his head slightly, as if considering something. Then he nodded to one of his soldiers. Ortiz, he said simply. The human female stepped forward. Private Jenny Ortiz, the one who weighed 68 kilograms. She was one of the smaller humans, barely reaching 1.6 meters in height. She walked to the platform with an easy stride, her movements relaxed, almost casual. Vex felt a flicker of something he could not quite name. Concern. No. That was ridiculous. What could this tiny creature possibly do? Private Ortiz, Vex said, trying to keep the condescension out of his voice and failing. I appreciate your courage, but perhaps you should reconsider. 200 kilograms is, well, it is more than 3 times your body weight. I do not want anyone getting injured on their first day. Ortiz looked up at him, and for the first time he saw something in her expression. Not fear, not determination, something else. Amusement. I will be fine, sir, she said. Please load the weight. The crowd had gone quiet now. Everyone wanted to see this. Vex could hear whispered bets being placed. How many seconds before she gave up? Would she even be able to move the bar? Vex walked to the control panel and set the weight to 200 kilograms. The system whirred, loading the plates onto the bar. The display confirmed the weight, and the bar lowered into position. Private Jenny Ortiz stepped onto the platform. She looked at the bar for a moment and reached down and wrapped her right hand around it. Her right hand, singular. Private Vex started to say, you should use both hands for... She lifted. The weight came up smoothly, easily, rising from the platform like it weighed nothing. Ortiz held the bar in her right hand at waist height, her arm barely flexing, her breathing completely normal. Then, while still holding the 200-kilogram weight in one hand, she pulled out her datapad with her left hand and appeared to check something on the screen. The hall went absolutely silent. Ortiz looked up at Vex, the weight still suspended in her right hand, not shaking, not straining. Sir, she said, her voice conversational, almost bored. Do you have anything heavier? Vex stared at Private Ortiz, his brain refusing to process what his eyes were showing him. The weight was still there, suspended in her single hand, the display still reading 200 kilograms. She was not shaking, not grimacing, not showing any sign of effort whatsoever. She was checking her datapad. What? Vex managed to say, his voice coming out strangled. What are you doing? Ortiz glanced up from her screen. Just confirming the conversion, sir. 200 kilograms is about 440 pounds in our measurement system. Wanted to make sure I was reading the display correctly. She said it like she was discussing the weather, like she was not currently holding a weight that should have crushed her into the floor. Garthok moved first, his massive form pushing through the crowd. He stared at Ortiz, then at the weight, then back at Ortiz. His small eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Impossible," he growled. "Trickery. The weight is fake." "The system does not malfunction," Krell said, but his mandibles were clicking erratically, a sign of severe agitation. "The display is accurate. She is holding 200 kilograms. With one hand," Drex added, his voice hollow with disbelief. Vex found his legs moving, carrying him closer to the platform. He checked the control panel, ran a diagnostic, verified the weight calibration. Everything was functioning perfectly. The bar she was holding actually weighed 200 kilograms, and she was still just standing there waiting. "Put it down," Vex ordered. Ortiz shrugged and lowered the weight back to the platform with the same casual ease she had lifted it. She stepped off, brushing her hands together as if removing dust, and looked at Vex expectantly. "Drugs," Vex said suddenly, the word bursting out. "You are using enhancement drugs. Chemical augmentation. That is the only explanation." Lieutenant Marcus Webb stepped forward, his expression still calm but his voice carrying an edge now. "We are not using any substances, sir. Coalition protocols required full biological screening before our arrival. The results are in your system." Vex pulled up the files on his datapad, scrolling frantically through the human medical reports. "Clean. All of them. No chemical enhancements, no genetic modifications, no cybernetic implants, just biology." "Then gravity manipulation," Vex insisted, looking around wildly. "You have some kind of field generator that is reducing the weight. You must." "We do not have that technology, sir," Marcus said. "Liar," Garthok roared, stepping onto the platform himself. He grabbed the bar with both hands and lifted. His muscles strained, his breathing grew heavy, and he managed to raise it to chest height before setting it down. 200 kilograms is heavy. She could not lift that with one hand, unless something was wrong with the weight. Marcus looked at his unit, seemed to have another one of those silent conversations, then turned back to Vex. "Sir, may I explain something about Earth?" Vex wanted to refuse, wanted to throw these humans out of his facility and never think about them again, but he was also a soldier, and soldiers sought answers, even when those answers terrified them. "Speak," he said. Marcus gestured to the other humans who moved to stand beside him in a line. "Earth, our homeworld, has a gravitational force of 9.8 meters per second squared. In Coalition standard measurements, that is approximately 1.8 times the gravity you are currently experiencing in this facility." The number hung in the air. Vex heard it, understood the words, but the meaning would not connect. 1.8 times, Krell repeated, his voice rising. "That cannot be correct. Your planet would crush you." "It does not crush us," Private Ortiz said, "because we evolved there. Our bones, our muscles, our entire biology adapted to that environment over millions of years." Another human stepped forward, a male with the name Kim on his uniform, Corporal Devon Kim. He tapped at his datapad and pulled up a holographic display showing 2 planetary bodies. "This is your station's artificial gravity," Devorn said, pointing to one sphere. "Standard Coalition baseline designed for average species comfort, and this," he pointed to the other sphere, "is Earth. Every second of every day from the moment we are born until we die, we are being pulled down with almost twice the force you experience." Vex felt something cold spreading through his chest. He looked at the humans again, really looked at them. Their legs, thick and heavily muscled for their size, their compact builds, the way they stood, perfectly balanced, like they were anchored to the ground. "Standing upright on Earth requires constant muscular engagement," Marcus continued. "Walking requires more effort, running requires even more. Everything we do, every movement, every action, we are fighting against a force almost twice what you experience as normal. That is why you are so short," Drex said quietly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Your bodies are compressed by the gravity." "Compressed. Adapted, strengthened," Marcus confirmed. "And when we come to a station like this, with your standard gravity, we are effectively operating at less than 60% of our normal weight resistance." Vex tried to do the calculations in his head. If Ortiz weighed 68 kilograms here, on Earth she would weigh over 120 kilograms, and she carried that every single day. "The 200-kilogram lift," Vex said slowly. "On Earth, that would be closer to 360 kilograms in equivalent resistance," Devon confirmed. "But Private Ortiz has been training in Earth gravity her entire life." 200 kilograms in standard gravity as well. It is light for her. Light, Garthok repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Ortiz smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression. Sir, you asked if I could attempt the baseline. I did. Now, respectfully, I ask again, do you have anything heavier? Because that was not even close to challenging. The assembled aliens looked at each other. Confusion and growing fear spreading through the crowd. Vex heard whispered conversations. Saw soldiers backing away from the humans as if they were suddenly dangerous. A Thexian in the back spoke up, his voice shaking. But your report said Earth was a low-threat world, moderate environment. No major predators. Marcus turned to face the speaker and his smile was not friendly. Who do you think killed all the predators? The silence that followed was absolute. Vex forced himself to think like an instructor, to push past the shock and focus on protocols. If what they were saying was true, if Earth really had that much gravity, then these humans were not just stronger than they appeared, they were potentially stronger than anyone in the coalition. Prove it, Vex said, his voice hoarse. You say you can lift more. Then prove it. Show us what you are actually capable of. Marcus looked at his unit again. Ortiz nodded. Kim grinned. The others showed similar expressions of anticipation. Yes, sir, Marcus said. We would be happy to demonstrate, but you should probably clear some space, and maybe reinforce the platform. We would not want to damage your equipment. Damage the equipment. The equipment designed to handle Vorkul Berserker. Vex looked at the control panel. At the maximum weight capacity listed in the system specifications, 500 kilograms, the absolute limit of what the platform could safely support. No species had ever even attempted that weight. It was theoretical, a safety margin, not an actual test. Load 500 kilograms, Vex heard himself say. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Garthok laughed, but it sounded forced, nervous. 500 kilograms? Krell said. Vex, that is madness. That weight would kill them. Marcus Webb looked at the Thexian, then back at Vex, and his expression was almost pitying. Sir, he said quietly, you are going to need more than that. Vex felt his authority slipping away with every passing second, and he hated it. He was the instructor here. He set the standards. He determined who was strong and who was weak. These humans, these tiny, impossible creatures, were turning his entire understanding of the universe upside down. More than 500 kilograms, he said, forcing steel into his voice. You claim you need more than the absolute maximum our equipment is designed to handle. Yes, sir, Marcus replied simply. Fine. Vex turned to Krell. Bring out the ceremonial weight. Every species in the room reacted. The Kryn soldiers straightened. The Vorkul stopped their muttering. Even Garthok looked surprised. The ceremonial weight. Krell's mandibles froze mid-click. Vex, that has never been used for actual training. It exists only for— I know what it exists for, Vex snapped. Bring it out, now. The ceremonial weight was exactly what it sounded like. A relic from the Coalition's founding. A massive barbell created to symbolize the strength of unified species. It was displayed during official ceremonies, photographs with visiting dignitaries, recruitment propaganda. It weighed 500 kilograms fully loaded. And in the 15 cycles Vex had been at Station Apex, he had never seen anyone actually lift it. It took 4 Kryn soldiers to wheel it out on a reinforced cart. The bar was thicker than standard equipment, the plates enormous discs of dense metal. The crowd parted to let them through, everyone staring at the weight like it was some kind of holy artifact, which, in a way, it was. They positioned it on the platform, and the structure groaned slightly under the load. The display confirmed the weight. 500 kilograms exactly. Vex turned to Marcus. There. 500 kilograms. The maximum. Lift that, and I will believe your claims about Earth's gravity. Marcus looked at the weight, then at his team. Ortiz, Kim, Chen, Rodriguez. Warm-up rotation. Warm-up. He called it a warm-up. 4 humans stepped onto the platform. Ortiz was joined by Kim, a female with the name Chen on her uniform, and a male named Rodriguez. They positioned themselves around the bar, discussing something in low voices too quiet for Vex to hear. Then Ortiz and Kim gripped one end of the bar while Chen and Rodriguez took the other. They lifted together. The 500 kilogram ceremonial weight rose off the platform like it was made of foam. The 4 humans brought it to chest height, held it there for the standard 5 seconds, then lowered it back down with perfect control. Then they did it again, and again. On the 4th repetition, Chen yawned. By the ancestors, Drex whispered. They are toying with it. Ortiz stepped back and rotated her shoulder, stretching. Sir, this is good for warming up our stabilizer muscles, but if you want to see our actual capabilities, we need heavier equipment. There is no heavier equipment, Vex roared, his composure finally breaking. That is the limit. 500 kilograms is the maximum. Corporal Devon Kim stepped forward, his datapad in hand. Sir, respectfully, this is a military training facility. But you also have a cargo handling zone, correct? For loading and unloading supply ships? Vex blinked. Yes, but that equipment is not designed for. The loading arms use counterweights for calibration, Devon continued, reading from his datapad. According to the station's public technical specifications, those counterweights range from 500 to 1500 kilograms. We could use those. 1500 kilograms. The number was absurd. That was not a weight for beings to lift. That was for machinery. For industrial equipment. You cannot be serious, Krell said. Marcus looked at Vex, his expression earnest. Sir, if you want proof, real proof, we need to access that equipment. What we have shown you so far is just basic strength. You wanted to see our limits. Let us show you. Before Vex could respond, the main doors to the training hall slammed open with a force that made everyone jump. Captain Ryla Thawne entered like a storm made flesh. She was magnificent. Even among Kryn, Ryla was exceptional. She stood 2.4 meters tall, her scales a deep crimson that marked her as coming from the warrior caste. Her forearms were thick with muscle earned through decades of combat. She weighed 290 kilograms of pure predatory power, and every step she took radiated authority. Ryla had commanded the 7th Kryn battle group for 20 cycles. She had personally led ground assaults on 3 hostile worlds. She wore scars like medals, and her reputation made even Vorkal berserkers show respect. She was also Vex's direct superior. Instructor Vex. Ryla's voice cut through the hall like a blade. Why is my entire command staff messaging me about humans performing impossible feats in your training facility? Vex snapped to attention. Captain Thawne. Ryla's gaze swept across the room, taking in the assembled aliens, the ceremonial weight still on the platform, and finally settling on the humans. Her eyes narrowed. These are the humans everyone is panicking about? She walked closer, studying them like insects under glass. They are tiny. Yes, Captain. But, no. Ryla held up one clawed hand. I have heard the reports. I have seen the message threads. Everyone is acting like these creatures just rewrote the laws of physics. She stopped in front of Marcus Webb, looking down at him from her impressive height. You are the one claiming to be stronger than Coalition species. Not claiming, Captain, Marcus said calmly. Demonstrating. Ryla laughed, a deep, rolling sound. Demonstrating. You understand I could break you in half with one hand. Yes. You understand that I am the second strongest being on this station, and I have spent my entire life perfecting the art of physical combat. I understand you are very strong, Captain. Marcus agreed. Very strong. Ryla's amusement faded, replaced by something colder. I am not very strong. Human. I am the standard by which strength is measured in the Coalition military. I have personally lifted 420 kilograms in combat gear. I can crush steel with my bare hands. I have torn bulkhead doors off their hinges. She leaned down until her snout was level with Marcus's face. So when I hear that some fragile little species from a backwater world is making my soldiers question their own capabilities, I take offense. Do you understand that? Marcus met her gaze without flinching. Yes, Captain. Good. Ryla straightened up. Then you will not mind a small demonstration. Right here. Right now. So we can end this foolishness. She turned to Vex. You have been testing them? Yes, Captain, Vex said. They lifted the ceremonial weight. 4 of them. Like it was nothing. Ryla's expression flickered with something that might have been doubt, but it vanished quickly. The ceremonial weight. Impressive for creatures your size, I suppose. But that proves nothing. Leverage and technique can compensate for lack of strength. She walked to the platform and grabbed the ceremonial weight bar with her 2 lower arms. With a grunt of effort, she deadlifted it, brought it to waist height, and held it there. Her muscles strained, her breathing increased, but she maintained the position for 10 seconds before setting it down. 500 kilograms, she announced. Difficult but manageable for a Kryn of my rank and training. She turned back to the humans. Can any of you match that? Alone? Without your teamwork tricks? Private Ortiz raised her hand. I can, Captain. Ryla scoffed. You weigh what? 60 kilograms? 70? 68, Captain. Then you will forgive me if I do not believe you can lift more than 7 times your own body weight. Ortiz smiled, and Vex recognized that expression now. It was the look of someone who knew a secret, who was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it. Captain Thawne, Marcus said quietly. Before we continue, I should explain something about Earths. I do not care about your explanations, Ryla cut him off. I care about results. Either demonstrate your strength, or stop wasting my time. Marcus nodded slowly. As you wish, Captain. He looked at his team and Vex saw something pass between them. A decision being made. Actually, Captain, Marcus said, turning back to Ryla. I have a better idea for a demonstration. One that will prove our point more effectively than any weight. Oh? Ryla crossed her arms. And what would that be? Marcus smiled. You. The word hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. You. Captain Ryla Thawne stared at Lieutenant Marcus Webb, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally settling on anger. Excuse me? Her voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Marcus gestured casually at the ceremonial weight, then at the assembled aliens. With respect, Captain, weights are abstract, numbers on a display. They do not mean anything to most of the people watching. But you, everyone here knows exactly how strong you are, how heavy you are, how impossible it should be for someone my size to move you. Ryla's scales flushed darker, a sign of rising aggression that every Kryn in the room recognized. You think you can lift me? I think it would be an effective demonstration, yes. Of what? Your stupidity. Ryla took a step closer to Marcus, her shadow falling over him. I am 290 kilograms of muscle and bone. I am a trained warrior with 4 functional arms. I could kill you before you even touched me. Marcus did not move, did not react to the threat. You asked for a demonstration, Captain. I am offering one, but only with your permission. Vex watched this exchange with growing horror. He knew Ryla's temper. He had seen her throw soldiers twice her size across training rooms for lesser insults. This human was either incredibly brave or monumentally foolish. Ryla leaned down, bringing her face centimeters from Marcus's. Her breath came in hot snorts. You want permission to try and lift me? Fine. You have it, and when you fail, when you collapse under my weight, when you humiliate yourself in front of everyone here, you will leave this station and never come back. Agreed? Agreed, Marcus said calmly. Ryla straightened up, spreading her forearms wide. Then try, human. Show me this impossible strength you claim to possess. Marcus took a breath, rolled his shoulders once and stepped forward. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for generations. Marcus moved with sudden, fluid precision. His hands shot out, gripping Ryla around her midsection just below her lower set of arms. For a fraction of a second she tensed, preparing to counter what she assumed would be a failed lifting attempt. Then Marcus lifted. Captain Ryla Thawne came off the ground like she weighed nothing. Not slowly, not with visible strain or struggle. Marcus simply stood up, straightening his legs and back, and Ryla rose into the air with him. Her eyes went wide with shock. Her arms flailed for a moment, seeking balance that was not there because she was no longer connected to the ground. Marcus adjusted his grip, stepped his feet into a wider stance and then pressed. He pressed Ryla Thawne above his head. His arms extended fully, locked at the elbows, holding 290 kilograms of elite Kryn warrior overhead like she was a training weight. His expression showed concentration, but not strain. No shaking in his arms, no trembling in his legs. His breathing remained steady and controlled. The training hall was silent enough to hear individual heartbeats. Ryla looked down at Marcus, then at the ground far below her, then at her own hands as if they belonged to someone else. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Marcus held the position. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15. Earth's gravity, he said, his voice perfectly steady, not even breathless, is 9.8 meters per second squared, almost double what you experience as normal. Everything I have ever done, every step I have ever taken, every object I have ever carried, has been under that constant force. 20 seconds. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Marcus continued, still holding Ryla motionless above his head. We did not have claws or fangs or armor. We had endurance, stamina, the ability to carry our own weight, plus weapons plus supplies across hundreds of kilometers, in heat that would kill most species, through terrain that would cripple others. 25 seconds. Our bones are dense because they have to be. Our muscles are layered and redundant because anything less would fail under the constant load. Our cardiovascular system is overpowered for our size because our hearts have to pump blood upward against gravity that wants to drag it down. 30 seconds. Marcus began to lower Ryla. The descent as controlled and smooth as the lift. He set her feet gently on the ground, released his grip, and stepped back. Ryla stood there, swaying slightly, her legs unsteady beneath her. She stared at Marcus like he had just revealed himself to be made of fire and void stuff. Marcus clasped his hands behind his back, standing at ease. Captain, you weigh approximately 290 kilograms here. On Earth, your equivalent weight would be over 520 kilograms. I have trained my entire adult life in that gravity. Lifting you in standard coalition gravity is not difficult. It is just different. Vex looked around the training hall. Every alien was frozen. Some had their mouths open. Others were backing away slowly. Garthok, the massive Vorkul who had mocked the humans earlier, had gone completely pale, his skin losing its normal dark coloration. Krell's forearms hung limp at his sides, his mandibles slack. Drex was shaking his head slowly, repeatedly, as if trying to reset his brain. Private Ortiz spoke into the silence, her voice cheerful. For reference, Lieutenant Webb is not even our strongest lifter. Sergeant Torres back at base can military press over 300 kilograms. He is built differently. Captain Ryla Thawne finally found her voice. It came out as a whisper. You lifted me. Yes, Captain. You held me over your head. Yes, Captain. For 30 seconds. Yes, Captain. Ryla's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the platform, her forearms wrapped around herself as if seeking comfort. She looked up at Marcus with something Vex had never seen in her eyes before. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. What are you? She asked. Marcus's expression softened slightly. We are humans, Captain. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our oceans have storms that could flatten cities. Our land has deserts that reach 70 degrees and frozen wastelands that drop to -80. We have predators with fangs as long as your fingers, venom that stops hearts in seconds, diseases that have killed millions of us. He gestured at his team. We are not the strongest species because we wanted to be. We are strong because anything weaker died before they could have children. Earth did not give us a choice. Private Chen stepped forward, her voice quiet but clear. You asked what we are, Captain. We are the species that survived a Deathworld. We are what happens when gravity itself tries to crush you for 4 million years and fails. Corporal Rodriguez added, we are what predators become when all the other predators are extinct. Kim finished the thought. We are humans. And we have been carrying weight you cannot imagine since before we learned to make fire. The silence stretched. Vex watched as understanding rippled through the crowd. He saw soldiers stepping backward, creating distance between themselves and the humans. He saw respect in some eyes, terror in others. Garthok was the first to speak, his voice barely audible. Deathworld. They come from a Deathworld. The word spread through the hall like contagion. Deathworld. Deathworld. The humans are from a Deathworld. Vex looked at Lieutenant Marcus Webb, at this small, unassuming being who had just casually lifted the second strongest warrior in the coalition like she was a child's toy. And for the first time in his career, Instructor Vex Tarun understood what it meant to be truly outmatched. Captain Ryla was still sitting on the platform staring at her own hands. I could not have stopped you, she said slowly. If you had wanted to hurt me while I was up there, I could not have done anything. No, Captain. Marcus agreed. You could not have. Ryla looked up at him, and something changed in her expression. The fear was still there, but it was being overtaken by something else. Understanding, acceptance, and beneath it all, a warrior's recognition of strength. She stood up slowly, testing her legs, then she did something Vex had never seen her do. Captain Ryla Thawne bowed to Marcus Webb, not a formal military salute, a bow, deep and respectful. I apologize, Lieutenant, she said. I underestimated you and your species. It will not happen again. Marcus returned the bow. No apology necessary, Captain. You had no frame of reference. None of them did. Ryla straightened, some of her composure returning. No, we did not. She turned to face the assembled aliens. But we do now. Vex found himself sitting on equipment crate, his legs no longer willing to support him. His worldview, carefully constructed over 15 cycles of training the galaxy's finest warriors, lay in ruins around him. He looked up at Marcus Webb and the question came out raw and desperate. Explain it to me. All of it. I need to understand. Marcus nodded and gestured for his team to gather around. Captain Ryla remained standing nearby, listening intently, her earlier arrogance replaced by cautious attention. The other aliens formed a loose semicircle, keeping distance but unable to look away. Earth, Marcus began, is classified in Coalition records as a Class 7 world, moderate climate, moderate gravity, low threat level. Those classifications are wrong. Catastrophically wrong. He pulled up a holographic display from his datapad showing a blue and green planet rotating slowly. Earth has a gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared. That is 1.78 times standard Coalition baseline. Every human who has ever lived has spent their entire existence being pulled downward with nearly twice the force you consider normal. Krell's mandibles clicked nervously. But how do your bodies not collapse? Private Ortiz stepped forward. Our skeletal structure is incredibly dense. Human bones can withstand compression forces that would shatter the bones of most species in this room. Our leg bones alone support our full body weight multiplied by 2 to 3 times during normal running, in Earth gravity. Which means in your gravity we are operating at a fraction of our normal stress load. She pulled up a comparison chart. A human femur, our thigh bone, can withstand 16,000 newtons of force before fracturing. For reference, that is equivalent to supporting roughly 1,600 kilograms of weight. We built these bones by walking upright against crushing gravity for millions of years. Drex spoke up, his voice shaking. But your muscles, you are so small, how? Muscle density, Corporal Devon Kim answered. Human muscle tissue is layered differently than most species. We have slow twitch fibers for endurance and fast twitch fibers for explosive power. Our backs, our legs, our core, they are in constant engagement just to keep us upright against Earth's gravity. He walked to the ceremonial weight and casually lifted one end with a single hand, tilting the massive bar at an angle. This feels like maybe half weight to me. My body is calibrated for Earth. Here everything is lighter. Everything is easier. Captain Ryla found her voice, still unsteady. You said persistence hunting. Explain that. Private Chen nodded. Humans are endurance specialists, Captain. We can run for days. Literally days without stopping. Most predators on Earth, the ones that survived alongside us, can sprint fast but tire quickly. Humans evolved to simply follow them. Walking when the prey ran, jogging when it rested, never stopping, never giving up. She pulled up footage from Earth showing humans running across vast plains under a brutal sun. We chased animals until their bodies overheated and shut down, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we killed them with tools we carried the entire way. No other species on Earth could do this, just humans. We are the galaxy's ultimate endurance predators, Rodriguez added. Our cooling system is unique too. We sweat. We can regulate our body temperature through evaporative cooling across our entire skin surface. Most species here can only cool through panting or limited skin patches. Humans can maintain physical activity and heat that would kill you for hours, for days. Vex felt something cold settling into his chest. He thought about the long-distance training runs in his curriculum. 5 kilometers was considered brutal for most species. He had seen Vorkul berserkers collapse after 3 kilometers of sustained jogging. How far can you run? He asked quietly. The human record for continuous running is 350 kilometers, Marcus said. That is not the limit of human capability. That is just how far someone ran before they decided to stop. 350 kilometers. Vex had never run more than 20 in his entire life. But it is not just running, Jenny Ortiz continued. She held up her hands. Humans have incredible grip strength and dexterity. We evolved climbing trees to escape predators, throwing rocks and spears to hunt. Our hands can grip for hours without tiring. Our shoulders can throw objects with accuracy and force that most species cannot match. She picked up a small weight disc, maybe 5 kilograms. Watch. She threw it across the training hall. It sailed in a perfect arc, easily 30 meters, and struck a targeting dummy dead center with enough force to knock it backward. Throwing, Marcus said. No other Earth species can throw like humans. It is a unique adaptation. We can generate incredible force through rotational motion. Spears, rocks, grenades. Humans are living artillery. Garthok spoke up, his earlier aggression gone. Your world, Earth, it tried to kill you. The gravity alone should have kept you crawling on the ground like insects. How did you survive? Marcus met his gaze. We survived because we adapted. Because we had no choice. Earth has temperature swings of over 150 degrees depending on location and season. We have storms with winds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. We have earthquakes that shatter cities, volcanoes that block out the sun, floods, droughts, ice ages. His voice grew harder. We have predators with claws that can tear through flesh, venom that stops hearts, diseases that spread through populations and kill millions, parasites that eat us from the inside. Earth is not a moderate world. Earth is a nightmare that has been trying to exterminate humanity since we first stood upright. Chen pulled up more images. Hurricanes, tsunamis, erupting volcanoes, lions, bears, crocodiles, snakes. And we killed them. She said simply. We killed the predators. We built shelters against the storms. We created medicine for the diseases. We hunted the hunters until they feared us more than we feared them. Humans did not become strong because we wanted to. We became strong because every single generation, the weak ones died before they could have children. There was a long silence. Then Captain Ryla spoke, her voice thoughtful. Your uniforms, she said. They look heavier than standard coalition issue. Marcus smiled slightly. Good observation, Captain. They are heavier. Significantly heavier. He reached down and touched a control on his belt. There was a series of clicks, and something fell from his uniform, clattering to the floor. Other humans did the same. Weighted plates, built into their clothing. Each plate is 5 kilograms, Marcus explained. We wear them to simulate Earth gravity as closely as possible in coalition standard conditions. Without them we would lose muscle density and bone strength over time. Our bodies would atrophy. Devon bent down and collected his plates. I am wearing 20 kilograms of weight distribution across my body. I have been wearing it this entire time. We all have. Vex stared at the plates on the ground. You have been training, with extra weight, this entire time. Yes, sir. You lifted the ceremonial weight while wearing 20 kilograms of extra mass. Yes, sir. Vex did the math in his head and felt sick. If they removed the weights completely, if they operated at full capacity in standard gravity, they would be even stronger. Captain Ryla walked to the discarded weight plates and picked one up. I could not lift myself easily, she said quietly. Another Kryn of my size and mass? I would struggle. I might manage it briefly, but not like you did. She looked at Marcus. You made it look effortless. Because for me, it was relatively simple, Captain, Marcus said. You weigh 290 kilograms. On Earth I regularly train with 300 kilogram lifts. Here, with reduced gravity, you were well within my capability range. Ryla set down the weight plate carefully, reverently. We have been testing you against our standards, but our standards are based on our worlds, our gravity, our evolution. We never considered that your baseline was completely different. She looked around at the training equipment, the weights, the testing platforms, everything here, all of it. It is too light for you. You have been training at a massive disadvantage, and you still exceeded our best performance. Marcus nodded. We adapt, Captain. It is what humans do. Vex stood up slowly, his legs steady again but his mind still reeling. He walked to the platform where the ceremonial weight rested. He had spent his entire career believing that Kryn were the apex warriors, that physical strength followed a natural hierarchy with his species near the top. He had been wrong. He looked at the humans, really looked at them. Their compact builds were not weakness. They were compression, efficiency, density. Their size was not a limitation. It was an adaptation to survive under crushing gravitational force. Every muscle fiber, every bone, every system in their bodies was over-engineered for a world that wanted them dead. And they had not just survived. They had thrived. They had become the apex predators of a death world that made coalition standard environments look like vacation resorts. Private Ortiz walked to the weight rack and selected what the facility classified as a heavy training set. 250 kilograms. She loaded it onto an adjustable bar and began performing shoulder presses. Smooth, controlled, 10 repetitions without pausing. Warm-up set, she explained, noticing Vex watching. Gets the blood flowing. Warm-up set. Drex's personal record was 280 kilograms, 1 lift. Maximum effort. And this human was doing it for 10 repetitions as a warm-up exercise. Kim and Rodriguez moved to another station and began doing pull-ups, with 40-kilogram weights attached to their belts. They made it look casual, conversational, chatting with each other between sets. Chen was stretching, bending in ways that should not be possible for a being with a rigid skeleton. Yoga, she explained. Human flexibility training helps prevent injury. Captain Ryla watched all of this with the expression of someone re-evaluating every assumption they had ever made. "How do we train them?" she asked Vex quietly. "Our equipment is inadequate. Our standards are meaningless. How do we integrate humans into coalition forces when they operate on a completely different physical paradigm?" Vex had no answer. Marcus approached them, overhearing the question. "You train us the same way you train everyone else, Captain. You teach us tactics, strategy, teamwork. Physical strength is just one component of military effectiveness. We are not here to replace anyone. We are here to contribute what we can." Ryla nodded slowly. "Diplomatic answer, Lieutenant. But we both know the truth. Humans are not just another species joining the coalition. You are a game changer. A force multiplier that nobody saw coming." She extended one of her 4 hands. "I would be honored to train alongside your people, to learn from them, and perhaps, to teach them what we know as well." Marcus shook her hand. "The honor would be ours, Captain." Vex watched the exchange, and understanding finally crystallized in his mind. He had laughed at Earth's soldiers. He had mocked their size, their appearance, their supposedly weak biology. He had judged them by coalition standards, never realizing that those standards were built for normal worlds, comfortable worlds, safe worlds. Earth was none of those things. Humans did not train in gyms to build strength. They trained in gyms to maintain the strength that simply existing on their nightmare planet had given them. Every step a human took on Earth was resistance training. Every breath was cardiovascular conditioning. Every moment of their lives, gravity itself was trying to crush them, and they just kept standing. They were not soldiers who got strong. They were a species born strong, forged strong, evolved strong by a world that killed anything less. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Vex looked at Lieutenant Marcus Webb one last time, seeing him clearly now, not as a small, weak creature from a backwater world, but as exactly what he was, a Deathworld predator, standing casually in a garden, surrounded by prey who had finally realized what they were looking at. "Welcome to Station Apex, Lieutenant Webb," Vex said, his voice steady despite everything. "I think we have a lot to learn from each other." Marcus smiled. "I think so too, Instructor Thawne. I think so too."